What an amazing time to be alive. In the coming week, we are going to see the convergence of many different events. If you looked at any one of these events in isolation, it would raise the eyebrows of a critical thinking person, but when taken as a whole, looked at holistically, it could be petrifying to the right set of eyes, or the wrong set of eyes, depending on how you look at it. We're about to see, in the coming week ahead, a possible shutdown of the U.S. government, which is historically unprecedented. Not to say it doesn't happen from time to time, but on the whole, it's historically unprecedented. It happened recently, in recent years, and it wasn't the end of the world, but in the current geopolitical climate, it's very concerning. In fact, there are rumblings that perhaps there is more to this than meets the eye. Okay? You're also going to have on October 3rd, the Russians partake. I was talking about how the Russians are retrofitting their nuclear bunkers in the Muscovite subways. Well, they're going to be having this major exercise, apparently. It's like a nuclear martial law, full-blown mobilization, like nuclear war, full-blown society sim thing taking place on October 3rd. The very next day, and I don't know if this is going to be affected by the emergency alert system, if that's going to be affected by the government shutdown, but every American is going to be sent a message on their phone saying this is just a test of the emergency alert system. In the case that there was a national disaster, we want to make sure that we can effectively send the message to everybody at once, and it's not going to crash the entirety of the cell network, grid, whatever it is. So that's going to happen on October 4th. And boy, is that going to put the scare into some people. Because some people, I mean, I'd say 90% of people don't even know it's going to happen yet. I'm sure the mainstream media will start making it more known as the time approaches. But it's going to be interesting to see. It's not the first time it's happened. This happens in other countries all the time. But clearly, they are preparing for a nuclear war in their own covert and inept and incompetent way that they typically do, by telling us that we're all, for lack of better terms, fucked. Okay? Well, not you, because you're preppers. They're selling gold at Costco in Canada now. They're selling gold in Costco in Canada. We'll talk about that in just a minute. I'm not talking about gold jewelry. I'm talking about gold bullion. It's okay to buy gold now. Okay? It's okay now. It's okay. Soon it's going to be okay to buy your nuclear preparedness gear. And everything else we've been saying, because, you know, when you got to be, there's a fine line between genius and insanity. I'm not saying I'm a genius. I think prepping is somewhere in between those two things. You got to be a little bit insane to be a prepper. You do. Because why would you not want to spend your time in the metaverse playing all kinds of video games and amusing yourself half to death when, you know, why would you not want to do that and focus on preparing for things which may never happen, right? Well, it takes a little bit of insanity to be ahead of the curve. In fact, I would say that, you know, you always have to be marginally insane to be ahead of any curve across any dimension or domain in society. MI6 claims to have intercepted Russian intelligence, suggesting that they're going to do a 1 million-man offensive into 5 other territories of Ukraine, starting in early 2024. Interesting. We have China. China is buying corn from the Ukraine. A sudden change of heart. Why would China suddenly be trying to scoop up as much food as they could? We already know that they have the largest stockpile of food on Earth, far more than their proportional share of the human population. Well, they are now purchasing up to 1 million tons of corn. A ton of corn. How many people can a ton of corn feed? I'm guessing quite a lot. So this is no small amount of food. This is no small potatoes. It is corn, in fact. And I don't know how they're going to get it. Are they going to get it through the Black Sea, I presume? Rail? How are they even still trading with the Ukrainians? I don't know. But apparently they're making an exception. And in spite of the fact that they're allied with Russia and that they're being lumped into this axis of evil by the United States and NATO, they're going to buy some Ukraine corn because they're like, we got to get it while the getting is good. Much like the United States has been buying this very special type of uranium that they need for the nuclear power plants from Russia. In fact, they've been stocking up on it. But hold on, Rosatom, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, comes out today and says, well, they come out with this press briefing. I don't know if it was a tweet or it was a public announcement, basically, that they were no longer going to be sending uranium to the United States. This was the company itself. This is right from the horse's mouth. It was reported on Forbes. And, typically they got to be somewhat reliable, right, if they're putting out information. And then they walked it back. Suddenly they said, oh, well, yeah, we didn't say that. That's a lie. Even though they said it. They explicitly stated it. That's why many media agencies ran with the story. Now, what's interesting is they said it had something to do with insurance. Understand the U.S. has been stockpiling Russian uranium because they know eventually if the war gets hot, they're going to get cut off. And that they need it for their power plants. They need it for the integrity of their power grid. And apparently there's been in our Cameco, uranium projections are going to be much lower than originally thought. So that is causing the price of uranium to skyrocket right now. But there could be other reasons that we're completely unaware. But there's truth to that. No, there's truth. That was sending a message to somebody. And I believe what's happening right now is, that old saying, well, if, goods aren't crossing borders, then, military will. First go the trade, then go the envoys and the diplomats, and then come in the guns. And we're still in that phase where everybody still they need each other. It's still a global market, but it's quickly becoming decoupled. And as soon as the United States can function independently from Russia and we don't need each other anymore, it's almost like we're all preparing for war with one another, utilizing the global trade system, but it's just going to make for a longer war because that means that we're all going to be more prepared. Well, we give Russia more time to prepare. The United States gets more time to prepare. China gets more time to prepare. And China, is going to have their industrial capacity far exceeds ours. They're shipbuilding 230 times that of the United States, which means that in a couple years, they could have they already do have one of the largest navies, but it could vastly exceed what the United States can flow. So just some crazy shit's happening. The State Department is preparing for a government shutdown. Now, let's just put on the tinfoil hat for a second. What if this government shutdown, and this is a big what if, this is a big old what if. What if there's something to do with the emergency alert system being timed at that period of time? I mean, it's hard not to at least ruminate on these things for a while. I want to be abundantly clear. I'm not saying that something is going to happen or that these things are directly related. I think it's more a sign of how politically divided we've become. But, the fact that these things coincide in the same week is concerning. Because, of course, with the government shutdown, that's an ideal time for things to get really weird on the global war front. So are these things related? Are we going to see the war heat up while the government is not, I don't know how a government shutdown works. I don't know what's essential and what's not. I probably should do more research on this, but I presume that means that a lot of services are going to be suspended and everything is just going to be essential personnel only. Well, what is essential when it comes to the government? You would think damn near everything, or otherwise it wouldn't need to be there, right? Well, no. Maybe that's, this is an opportunity for people to know where the fat is and where they can lean things out a little bit in terms of government spending. But all of these things are going to be happening at the same time. And I'm going to talk a bit more in depth about this Russian exercise that's about to happen. In 2024, Russia is going to be increasing its military expenditure by 70%, approaching records that they haven't seen since the Soviet era. And because their black budget consumes around 30% of their budget, the total amount of money, the total proportion of their budget spent is going to be around a third. Okay, 1/3 of their budget is going to be towards military. I think in the United States, what is it, like a few percentage points? Now, obviously, they have a much greater economy, but it's a sign of the times. Everything points towards a major escalation in this war. If those intelligence intercepts are correct, that Russia is indeed planning a million-strong offensive, and maybe that is why you're starting to see all the weapons flow in. In fact, there was another major fire in Crimea. On the topic of fires, let's talk about what's going on in Iran and Uzbekistan. Where there is smoke, there is fire. Okay, I know there was this tendency throughout 2023 in particular, whenever there was a train derailed or something like that, and I was the first person to call this out. People were like, oh, it's a grand conspiracy. There's more of this happening than in previous years, when the reality was train derailments were down significantly. Okay, so it's easy to have that confirmation bias and just say everything is related to this World War III stuff. But Uzbekistan, okay, this mysterious fire, this massive explosion that happened in a country that happens to be one of Russia's biggest trading partners. Far and away, Russia is their primary trading partner. The closest thing that comes to it is maybe Germany, okay? And certainly not the United States, who's trying to finesse that situation. So it makes you wonder, you look at that and you say, okay, accidents happen, but do warehouses get struck by lightning and explode like that? I don't know. But and then on the same day, Iran has another fire in a battery factory. Okay, of all places, another fire. I read about it on the Times of Israel website, news website. Go figure. So we know that there's saboteurs. We know that there's a covert aspect to this war, a behind-the-scenes, back-channel aspect to this war that is ongoing. We're seeing explosions in St. Petersburg that are going unreported. A lot of stuff is going unreported in this war. So we know that there's a very hot war going on in the background. And all I'll say is that where there is smoke, there is fire. There's this controversy over was the admiral actually killed, the Russian admiral of the Black Sea Fleet, in the major takeout of the headquarters there in Sevastopol? Well, it's always half true. It's very likely that he was injured. Just like it's very likely that the intelligence director of Ukraine, this guy Budanov, he's got some fused discs in his neck or something. I'm 100% convinced, because he's always, like so stiff like this. And he was only like that after this supposed incident that took him out. And then he came back and, very cryptically came back. And Zelensky the same. He doesn't look like he did before. He doesn't look as healthy. So there's some truth. These guys probably got injured in an attempt to take them out. The same thing with the, who is it? What's his name? Kadyrov, the Chechen guy. Everybody's saying he looks very sick. Maybe he was poisoned. Who knows? There's always some half-truth to these things. That's why I'm saying, I don't buy the whole, it was just a lightning that struck this place that happens that probably is helping out Russia's war effort in some way, shape, or form. Ukraine just yesterday comes out and says, we think we're going to start targeting Iran because they are helping the Russians. Do you think that's Ukraine saying that? That's NATO saying that through Ukraine. NATO is Ukraine. Never mind all the fancy theatrics. Why is it that anytime you see Jens Stoltenberg meeting with Zelensky, it's like this cinematic thing? They got cameras on these elaborate gimbal systems, and it's like this movie experience. Why do they need that? Because it's bullshit. That's why. The U.S. is building roads in Romania to expand their ability to deliver weapons into Ukraine. You remember Romania, the ones who have F-16s guarding the borders now and who are enforcing a no-fly zone over that region and are going to be shooting down Russian missiles that are attacking the ports that the Romanians are sending weapons into the Ukrainians? It's almost too easy at this point. I mean, I just kind of get a chuckle out of it. Why the hell are they selling gold at Costco? Well, because people are starting to get wise. My camera is overheating. It might just stop working altogether. So if I just cut off, guys, I guess that's all you're going to get tonight. Just forewarning you that it might happen here. Why are they selling gold at Costco? Well, you know, why were people suddenly interested in prepping when the pandemic hit? Because we're ahead of the curve. You got to be a little bit crazy. You got to be a little on the edge. You got to be a little insane. You know, it's somewhere between genius and insanity is prepping. We're not geniuses. I'm a humble man. I know my limitations. But I also know that we tend to get things right a lot. And you have to be a little crazy to be ahead of the curve. You certainly can't be a normie and be able to anticipate what's coming next. There has been a massive swell of interest in preparedness lately, not just at Costco, which is why they're selling bullion, but also just in the preparedness industry. Just in September, there's been this massive swell of interest in preparedness. We far exceeded our surge capacity here at Canadian Preparedness. As you can see behind me, I am in the warehouse today because we've just been grinding it out. I mean, my shirt's dirty, I'm sticky, I'm smelly. I'm just constantly on the grind 24/7, guys, right now to just try to get people the stuff that they've ordered in a timely fashion. We only have a certain amount of workers, swing workers, who come in when we do have these types of surges. And it's just one of those industries where things happen or calamities on the horizon, people panic, and then they all try to buy everything at once. And the system can only, you know, there's bottlenecks. So if you have made an order from Canadian Preparedness and there's a lengthy delay, nobody more than me understands your pain. Trust me, there's nothing I would want more than to get you your stuff as soon as possible. We are starting to get a handle on it, but there's been delays. I assure you that if I have to Kevin Costner your order out in the apocalypse on my horse, I will do that. Okay, me and Basil will ride out with your package. I don't care if it's halfway across the United States. I'm going to be like Tom Hanks in Castaway, and I'm going to make that final delivery. I'm going to make sure that one thing gets delivered. That's going to be my mission. That's going to keep me alive. Like the Book of Eli, I got to get to the ocean to, you know the whole story, right? Anyways, guys, I do appreciate your patience, and I've been on that end of the deal too, so I know I've been the person phoning and emailing, where's my stuff? I totally get it, 100%. We're not making any excuses, but I just want you to know that we're working our ass off trying to get you your stuff. And if I ever thought that the shit was going to hit the fan before I could, you know, get people what they purchase from us, I would just start canceling orders. I think this week ahead is going to be interesting because of this event that I should talk about before my camera fries here. Exercises will be held throughout Russia in case of mobilization, destruction, and radiation. It's a two-page document that was released that was, I don't want to say declassified, but I don't know if this was just leaked by a Telegram channel from the Russian Defense Ministry that indicate that there's going to be exercises held throughout Russia under martial law and mobilization. I'll post a link to that in the description below. It has been published on many different European news agency websites. On October 3rd, exercises will be held throughout Russia in case of mobilization, destruction, and radioactive contamination. Now, this is not only a translation, but it's an image translation. So it's not like a Google to English, Russian to English using Google Translate. I had to take an image of these documents, and then, so it's not the greatest translation, but I'll try to get you what I can here. The publication emphasizes that the events are planned to be held on the same day in all regions of the country. This will happen for the first time. Wow. That's something else. That this is happening the day before, that every American is going to get that on their phone. a day when we are at the highest risk of nuclear Armageddon than we've ever been before. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, I've said it before and I'll say it again, there was not as much of a threat from the Russians, most definitely. They did not have the capability to wipe us out in the way that they do today. Okay, they didn't have the targeting capability and it would have been much messier. But today there's a hot war in Europe. I mean, that is the number one point of concern right now, is that there's a war in Europe. They're saying that this is motivated by the current growth of geopolitical instability and conflict. And there's only certain parts of this document that I've effectively translated in a way that I'm easily going to be able to articulate. But it's talking all about how the threat of the safety of the population is the risk of a possible enemy using modern long-range weapons, as well as possible attacks using unmanned aerial and water vehicles. So clearly there they're talking about Ukraine using conventional means to attack. General mobilization has been completed on the territory of the Russian Federation. So they're preparing, it's an exercise to simulate not only like a nuclear war scenario, but also a general mobilization. So in this situation, general mobilization has been completed on the territory of the Russian Federation. Martial law has been introduced in certain subjects of the Russian Federation, like those oblasts most proximate to the Ukraine border, as we've seen happen in the recent year. Special formations created in order to solve problems in the field of civil defense have been transferred to the organization and composition of wartime. Now, this next part is going to be a very poor translation. According to available data in some subjects of the Russian Federation, possible occurrence of zones of radioactive contamination, severe, including due to the use of weapons of mass destruction. So they're talking about either a nuclear incident at one of the nuclear plants or due to nuclear weapons in some subjects of the Russian Federation as a result of emergency situations or other type of physical impact, complete destruction of life support facilities of the population, and up to 70% of the housing stock is possible in case of accidents at hydraulic structures, chemically and radiationally hazardous facilities. The occurrence of secondary hazards and zones of possible hazards is predicted. With Russia, they always kind of reverse things in the syntax. I don't really understand how that works, but I guess it's kind of like French. Federal executive authorities, or Spanish, is it? I don't even know. I'm not a linguist, as you can probably imagine. Federal executive authorities state authorities of the constituent entities of the Russian Federation, local self-government bodies and organizations may have carried out measures to bring civil defense into readiness in full. At the same time, the tasks remain unresolved in full. To create and ensure the readiness of emergency rescue units, emergency units to ensure the implementation of civil defense measures, training of specialists of formations, providing formations with material and technical means, taking into account the projected risks and threats as well as the equipment reports. This part might be more important. To determine the list of organizations that ensure the implementation of civil defense measures on the creation and maintenance of stocks of material, technical, food, medical, and other means for the purpose of civil defense. How are they going to keep society going if nuclear war breaks out, is what I get from that. Transportation support of evacuation methods, as well as the placement of the evacuated population in safe areas, which is why they're building bunkers underneath Moscow, or retrofitting the Moscow subway system, which is already built to be nuclear proof, just making sure that it's up to speed and up to date and ready to go at a moment's notice. As the placement of the evacuated population in safe areas, material and cultural values in safe areas. So they're talking about, you know that scene in the movies where they take all the fancy pictures and artworks and they put them in the bunker. That's what they're talking about. This is I get chills just reading this, man. This is crazy. There's one other piece of information I wanted to share with you guys today. I talked about the roads being built in Romania. There is 2 AWACS planes being sent to Latvia. So NATO Was that a Spanish feminine Freudian slip? Nada? Nada, that's what we'll start calling it. I'm gonna give that one to Gerald Salente. He can use that. He always got great nicknames for everybody. NATO decided to send 2 aircraft to Lithuania and monitor Russia. The North Atlantic Alliance has announced its intention to send 2 AWACS aircraft. So these are like reconnaissance aircraft, surveillance aircraft, to conduct surveillance of Russian military activities close to the border of NATO. What is going on close to the border of NATO? Why would Russia be in that direction? Or is this just a cover story for you need planes there because we need to know when the bombs are inbound? We need to know what's going on there because shit's about to get hot. I never believe their reasoning at this point in time for why they're doing these things. The first plane is expected to arrive on Thursday. Is it Thursday? That's Thursday. Thus, NATO is expanding its intelligence capabilities in Eastern Europe. And they've been doing this nonstop. Around Kaliningrad, around the Black Sea, they've been flying these planes close to the Russian border nonstop. And now we're starting to see the attacks penetrate deeper into Russia, all the way up to St. Petersburg. But nobody's talking about it. So this is why I do believe that, I shouldn't say I believe, but I'm suspicious that these events in the next week are somehow related. Again, it's probably going to pass. It's a safe bet to always be the guy who says those preppers are crazy. It's a safe bet. It's a very safe bet. It's like, putting your money in a 401k or something. Well, I guess that's not a good example right now. But you know what I mean, right? You got to be a bit of a gambler to be a prepper. And looking at the current state of things,